Today, we start with discussing our spiritual self care. What is spiritual self care? We know we talked about physical self care, energetic self care, emotional self care, intellectual self care, and the last of the pizza slices, the last of the puzzle is our spiritual self care. Today, with COVID, mental well being, mental health is being understood as being something that is very crucial for all of us. What I want to highlight here is that mental well being is important, mental health is important, emotional health is important, physical health is important, intellectual health is important. What is most important is our spiritual well being as well. And that is probably the biggest area that will give us a direction to our self care effort. And when we talk about spiritual well being and spiritual self care, what we are talking about is not just religion. Every religion has a spirituality attached to it. And what we are looking at when we are discussing spiritual well being and spiritual self care is something that is available to each and every one of us, is important to each and every one of us, whether we practice a particular religion or whether we practice no particular religion. It's equally available, equally important to all of us. So, that is the preamble with which I want to start off this discussion. As I covered spiritual self care over week by week, we looked at 12 different areas of spiritual self care, probably the biggest component of each of the five dimensions. So, the plan here when we are revisiting is to cover it over 3 weeks. We will do four topics in each week. So, today we will do four topics and then we will move on. I think by end of this month we would have covered the entire map of self-care. So let's look at the very first need, the very first way in which we can take care of our spiritual self. Any guesses for anybody who has not been following? If you're here and you have a guess as to what you think the most important way in which we can take care of our spiritual self, just drop it in the comments. So that is the spiritual self-care there. And when I share this slide, what comes to my mind is that just like every other dimension, taking care of our spiritual self is also built on the foundation of self love, self acceptance, and self awareness. Self awareness again becomes very crucial here because as we are discussing the different topics, you will realize that a lot of that cannot happen unless I am aware of myself. So, self awareness is equally important here. And these are the first six, the values of life, being authentic, expanding beyond ourselves, and then looking inside. So the two ends of the spectrum. So looking beyond ourselves, the macrocosm, and looking within ourselves, the microcosm, decluttering our inner world, enlightenment. And this is a very different kind of enlightenment, not the one that we are used to, balancing between the opposites and the power of intention. It's very important when we look at intention as to how are we going to move ahead with intention and what power intention has in our life. We will be looking at alignment of head, heart, and hands, self compassion, understanding meditation. We talk about meditation in many different contexts. In this context, it is about using meditation as a self care tool. And finally, bliss is available to us. What do we do to access our own inner bliss? So, those are the 12 ways in which we can take care of our spiritual self. Let's look at the very first one, the spiritual values of life. When we talk about values, why is this discussion on values so crucial? Everybody is looking at what's my purpose in life? What do I want to achieve in life? Where do I want to go? Which direction do I want to go? And we spend a lot of time, effort, agonizing, and trying to identify what is that one purpose. Whether I'm looking at education, whether I'm looking at a career, whether I'm looking at entrepreneurship, whether I'm looking at just fulfilling myself. This question we always ask is, what is the purpose of my life? And the answer to that is, it depends on our values. When I talk about values, values are universal. Everybody understands that values are important for a fulfilling life. But when I'm talking about spiritual self care, what I'm talking about is that one or two value, which is a personal value to me, which is of personal importance to me, something that I value the most. So people may look at honesty, integrity, people may look at compassion, people may look at reaching out and helping others. But that one value, the moment I see it, the moment I practice it, I feel good. And the other way of looking at it is, if I don't see others practicing it, it is like a trigger for me. Then I know that's something very important for me. So let's continue to look at the slides and how we can identify. How do we know what our values are? And in this case, we don't need a big list of values, just one or two values are good enough for us to start this process. And the first thing that we can look at is an umbrella of values. So if I'm looking at what are the values that are important to me, and I just list all the values over, and say if I'm saying things like helping, caring, compassion, loving, taking care of others, nurturing. And then you realize all the values that I'm talking about are all very similar. So I am using similar values. So this is the area that is most crucial for me. And then I can take these five or six that I've identified and select one that talks to me the most, that calls to me the most. And for starting purposes, that can be my personal value until such time that I spend more time with this. And then I realize that no, I have some other value that is more important for me. For those of us who have been working with values, who have been thinking about values, you may already have identified a value, and that's good. Start with that. And when we are looking at self care, I want to extend that discussion on values a little bit further to say what is the opposite of that value. Very often, the opposite is much more available to us, especially for youngsters. We may not be comfortable saying that is my value. For example, I may not be comfortable saying, or I may not even think patience is a value for me. Patience is important for me. But if I see the people around me getting angry at small things or getting irritated when I'm not fast enough or when I'm not getting what they are talking about, then I realize that anger, that irritation is not something that I'm comfortable with. I don't like it. And then I take that and look at the opposite of that anger or irritation, and that will allow me to identify patience is important to me. So, very often, negativity is easier for us, right? And it's okay. We make use of that information to then do a little bit of reflection and say, okay, I, I don't like when people are irritated. Patience is important to me. So, making that connection through the starting point of the opposite is another way of looking at it. So, once I have identified my value, what do I do with it? Is every value is not a theoretical value, it's always a situational value. It is practiced in a context. So, if a value is something that is practiced in a context, then there may be some situations where practice of that value is like a blind spot. So my practicing that value, my close feelings, or of that value may prevent me from seeing the situation as it is. So I need to be able to identify my blind spots. So that's another way of looking at the value itself and saying, in this situation, I do not want to practice value. So personally, for me, I will use that as an example. Personally, for me, purity is an important value. And the reason for that is my name in Sanskrit is Nirmala. And Nirmala means one without any blemishes or without any impurities. And my mother told me when I was young, she told me that she named me this because she wanted me to be very pure. So obviously, there's a lot of emotion attached to that. At the same time, that value, as I have been reflecting for the last many years, is something very close to my heart. So, what does that mean? So, if I'm looking at related values, I would probably look at things that I need to allow me to go deeper into something, understanding something at a much deeper value, making sure I'm aligned, head, heart, and hands. All of that will become part of that purity. Ideals, practicing ideals, all of those would be similar values. If I'm looking at opposite values, immediately I'm not able to tell you right now, but there are many things that I can say is an opposite of purity. And if I'm looking at the blind spot, and this is what I wanted to highlight, is something very important is my need for practicing ideals may make me prone to being perfectionist. So in any situation, if I'm practicing a value, am I displaying tendencies of being perfectionist? And that's my blind spot. And I need to check myself and make sure that I'm not being a perfectionist in a situation where it is not warranted. Yes, I need to practice ideals. It's important to me, it gives me satisfaction, but I don't need to be perfect about it. Now, perfectionism can also come up in other values as a blind spot. It's not something that comes up only with purity. But once I'm able to understand my values, in this case, purity, that practice of the values, so giving importance to that value or another value, so to one or two values, becomes my life purpose. That fulfills me and takes me on the path. And why do I say this as equating it with a life purpose? Is because very often we think of life purpose as a destination. We think that, okay, if I were to help these many people, or if I were to build this building or this organization or this community, then that is my purpose in life. But that is a destination. And with values as a purpose in life, this becomes a process, this becomes a path. And with this path, I am in touch with my life's purpose at every step of the way. And when I'm in touch with my life purpose at every step of the way, that destination, maybe I needed to achieve this, I needed to build this community, I did that. I don't have to feel that my purpose is done. It is an ongoing process. I celebrate it and then I move on to the next direction or whatever it is. Everything is still aligned with me because it is in line with my values. And that thinking process frees us from the tension of not knowing what my life purpose is, because not everybody has a clarity about what the life purpose is, keep going on the path of practicing our values, and that will take us to areas of greater clarity. So that's the first way in which we can ensure that our spiritual self is taken care of. So, one of the beautiful things, and also a little bit humorous, is that none of our values will be in line with every others around us. Sometimes it will be, sometimes it will not. So, what is important for me may not be important for the people around me. And that's when the life's dramas happen, because what's important for me is not being practiced by others. It may trigger me. So, learning to understand this is my value, that is their value, and they are practicing that, that actually frees us from the need to be triggered. Or, when we are triggered, we will not be easily triggered by others' actions. So, just understanding that is very rewarding. So, that is the first way in which we can take care of our spiritual self. Let's look at the other aspect, being authentic on three levels. Everybody talks about being authentic. What does it mean? And there are different answers. And when I talk about this, when I sat down and reflected on it, I realized there is no real one way of saying this is the way in which we can be authentic to ourselves. So I have used Satyasai Baba's quote to make sense of authenticity. The quote goes something like this: You're not one person, but three. The one you think you are, the one others think you are, and the one you really are. When we look at this, then we realize that the one others think you are is a mask that we have to wear when we are with them. The one we think we are is a mask we wear sometimes with others and often when we are by ourselves. And there's a third element, the one we really are, and that is the one without any masks. Each of these has its own level, has its own version of being authentic, and it's important for us to understand that. So, this is what I wanted to talk about. So, the one others think you are, that is the starting point. That's the smallest aspect of us. The one we think we are is slightly bigger. And both of those are built on the foundation of the one we really are. So if I need to be authentic, so one way to understand this is I wear many different hats. So I'm a sister, I'm a wife, I'm a mother, I'm a friend, I'm a body talk practitioner, I'm a coach. I'm sharing all this content on social media, and I have many, many different people that I am interacting with. All of those are different hats I'm wearing. So when I am in one particular situation, being authentic to that hat that I'm wearing, that is being authentic to what others think I am. I cannot do justice to all the roles at the same time. So choosing one role at a time and doing complete justice to that makes it easy. And how do I know which role I need to choose for that particular moment? It depends on which one needs my most attention. So, if I have a small child and the child is not well, then the role of the mother needs most attention. If I am working and a project deadline is coming up, then other things are not conflicting at that point in time, then that is the one that I will choose. So others take a back seat. That is the one that needs my attention. So similarly, looking at our different roles and then deciding at this point in time, what is the one that's most important? So right now, my role is to focus on this life. I'm reaching out to people through this life. This is the one others think I am at this point, and this is the one that I will deliver authentically. Now, that the one others think I am is not standing by itself. It is based on the one I think I am. What do I think of myself? If I think I am incapable of delivering this life, then I am not able to be authentic to the person who is delivering the life. So, the one others think I am, that mask that I'm wearing, depends on what I think of myself. So, working on that, what do I think of myself? And nourishing that, nurturing that, growing that, that becomes authenticity practiced at this level. And both of those depend on the one I really am. Who am I? I am one with infinite possibilities. Absolutely infinite possibilities. But I am not believing in all those infinite possibilities at this point in time. So the ones that I believe in right now as possible for me are the one that I'm going to develop in myself, and that will shape the one I think I am. And based on the one I think I am, I can deliver effectively, be authentic to the one others think I am. I hope this makes sense at this point in time. Our duty then is to spend time with ourselves regularly and be in touch with the one I really am. When I am in regular touch with the one that I really am, then all the others that are depending on that foundation are also going to develop, are also going to be flourishing in my life. So, taking time out to be in touch with our real self is a very important aspect of spiritual well being. And when we are able to do that, then we realize that we are not a drop in the ocean, we are an entire ocean in a drop. Rumi's wise words. So, that is the second topic of our spiritual self care. The third one is about expansion beyond ourselves. We are living in this world. There's so much to the world and the universe around us. And if you start looking at not just the universe, but the multiverse, so many layers and dimensions of universes available, then you realize that we are just a small dot in this vast expansion that is life. So, understanding that and understanding that I'm just a part, small part of this whole is very freeing and is very awe-inspiring as well. When I was talking about this in a weekly video, we put together a small segment that talks about this entire process of expansion. So I'm going to share that video right now. Just sit back and enjoy that. I am Nirmala Shekhar, one person out of 5.85 million people in Singapore and 7.8 billion people on planet Earth. Our Earth is one of 8 planets and 5 dwarf planets in this solar system. And this solar system is in the Milky Way galaxy. Our Milky Way galaxy is just one of billions of galaxies in this universe. Within it, there are at least 100 billion stars. And on average, each star has at least one planet orbiting it. exact size of this universe is unknown, and scientists believe that the universe is still expanding outward. Reflect for a while on the sheer enormity, the gigantic size of this universe that we are all a part of. Let your consciousness be soaked in that majesty and awe. From imagining the size of this gigantic universe, when I come back to my city, my home, I bring back that wonder, that awe, that expansion of my consciousness and awareness. I am just one, a minuscule part of this enormous, infinite universe. How was that for you? Understanding that we are just a small part of the universe and then reflecting on its enormity, its gigantic size, its majesty is very, very soothing, very inspiring, and energizes us as well. When we expand our consciousness in this way, it allows us to lose our individual presence and become part of something that's much, much bigger than us. It's just as Rumi said, we do not consider ourselves to be drops. Instead, we consider ourselves to be ocean. We have the potential of the entire universe, the energy of the entire universe within us as potential, as seed. And that reflection on this expanded version of the universe, that's what it gives us, that access to something bigger than us. And when we are able to see that bigger picture, we are able to come out of our own limiting blocks. It's actually a good exercise to periodically do that. Forget my limitations, forget the things that I am struggling with right now, and instead zoom out. Just as the camera zooms in and out, zoom out and then see uh, a bigger picture. So I'll give you an example here. So I have access to this eCam where I can zoom in and out of the camera. So if I am zooming in into my narrow existence, if I'm zooming in, you can see all my blemishes will be very, very visible, right? But if I am able to zoom out into a bigger picture of the universe, then I lose track of my own individual limitations, my own individual problems. And I'm able to see the world from a completely different perspective, see the beauty there, see how we are all parts of the puzzle and how we have a role to play in the bigger scheme of things. And when we are able to see the world that way, it really is a very wonderful gift that we can give our spiritual self. And when we do that, something happens. It creates space within us. Whenever we expand our vision, it creates space within us to grow, to create, to fulfill our potentials, to be authentic, to work on our values. All of those things are possible because we have created space within us. And when we do that, we get in touch with a word. And when I was working on this particular topic, that was the week I came to learn this word. It was so awe-inspiring for me because that word was really put me on a very different track. Pronoia. I'm not sure how many of us have heard this, We have all heard of paranoia, where we are afraid of everything that's happening around us. The opposite of that is pronoia, where we are not looking at the universe or the world around us with suspicion or fear. Instead, we are looking at the universe and saying, oh, look, the entire world, the entire universe is working to make my life on this earth easy. Imagine what can be done, what can be achieved when we are able to approach life with this perspective. Maybe we can't sustain this perspective for a long period of time when we get caught up in our own problems, but periodic expansion, looking at the expanded view of the universe, allows us to periodically get in touch with this feeling of pronoia. And when we do this enough number of times, it sort of becomes like a habit for us. So that is the third way in which we can take care of ourselves, expand our vision beyond ourselves. And that is looking at the macrocosm. And the opposite of looking at the macrocosm is looking at the microcosm. Everything that we looked at in the outside world, all that is available within us. If it is available within us, why am I not seeing it? Why am I not able to feel it all the time? So, this is the inner landscape. It allows us to bring about transformation. So, let me show you something that will help understand. I hope you can see this. It's a seed. I use this sprouted seeds in my cooking and salads. So, this is a seed. And what did this seed? This was a dal. I would have made it into a dal. What did this need to sprout? And then in future, if I were to plant it, it will grow into a plant. What does it need? It needs to go within. Yes, I need to provide it the environment of good soil, enough water. And when it's growing up into a plant, then I need to give it the environment of sunlight. I need to give it fertilizers and nurture and protect its environment so that it's not eaten up by pests, worms, and other things. I need to take care of the environment. But the seed itself, I don't need to do anything. The seed has the potential to grow into the plant. But if I were to soak and sprout 10 seeds, maybe 9 or 8 of them will come out with beautiful sprouts like this. Maybe 1 or 2 will not. What is the difference there? The difference is these seeds that are sprouting, they decided to go within. The potential of that growth is within the seed. And these seeds that are sprouting decided to go within to pick up its potential and act on it. The one that didn't sprout, for various reasons, could not do that process of accessing inner wisdom and then using that inner blueprint, using that and then growing. So, when we are looking at accessing our inner wisdom, the potential for doing anything in the world is available to us. The only difference is, am I willing to go within for guidance? Am I willing to go within and see what that potential is? And this is not just a theoretical aspect or a theoretical talk. It is true in every area of our life. Say I need to study. I'm writing an exam. Say I need to study. The way to study, the person who studies well is the person who believes that they have the ability to study well. And the person who believes they cannot study well will always struggle. So, what is the difference there? The person who believes they can study well has provided that access to their own inner wisdom. So, that's where the nurturing part of it, the nature part of it is the potential is inside. The nurturing part of it is creating an environment so that we are able to go within. So both nature and nurture are important in any area of our life. Going within to start depending on our own skills, our own abilities. All of that is possible when we are able to access our own inner guidance, inner wisdom. And when it comes to spiritual self, that even knowing which aspect of my spirituality I need to nurture right now, taking a particular challenge that I'm going through and then converting it into wisdom, converting it into insights, all of that is possible when I'm able to access my own inner wisdom. So, those are the four topics that we looked at, looking at our values and using the values to move forward in life, being authentic on three different levels. The one others think we are, the one we think we are, and the one we really are. All those are stacked one on top of each other. And then expanding beyond ourselves and then going within. Expanding beyond ourselves, opposite of that, going within for answers. So, those are the four topics that we looked at. Next week, same time, we will be looking at four more topics on spiritual self care. Hope this has been useful to everybody. Thank you for joining me. This is Nirmala Shekhar signing off. Bye bye. Namaste.